I said this before, but immediately we just felt like winners. The amount of hard work we were putting in was like a lot different than the past few years. Just the consistent just high rep, high intensity work that we were putting in made us feel like we were succeeding without playing any games.
Yeah, and there was this time period in November to December where we didn't know who we were getting, and there was rumors of Coach Carper, and I just remember going back on YouTube and just looking at him like, this is the guy I want. And then he ended up texting me, and I ended up calling him. I was so excited. I'm like, I had a feeling we got our guy, and then from December on, I think we've been going to work, and with what we have, I think we're working hard, and I think we're gonna have a really good year.
You mentioned it with the expectations thing. You go 2-8 last year. Now all of a sudden you're expected to compete. How is that kind of weigh on your guys' minds?
Well, I feel like, that's all we've ever wanted was to have high expectations for ourselves. Because after going we had a good season our freshman year. We went 7-4, and then we come out and the expectations are pretty high as well. And then we go 1-9, and then 2-8. But with that, with the expectations, we are able to – I feel like with the work we're putting in, we can definitely fulfill those. So, just being able to, be held to a standard that is better than 2-8 is a good feeling off the rip.
And as you mentioned, our freshman year, we've seen the program be where it's at, where it's good, and then obviously we've seen the bad. And I think that's what's bringing the senior class so close is that we know the expectation, what we have to do, and I think we can deliver this year.
All right, Mr. Carl Blaylock Media. How have you guys adjusted to the defense? Obviously, that's what Coach Carper has built himself on, that vaunted Silver Bullet defense he had at Benton County. How have you guys adjusted to the 3-3 stack scheme? And Coach, what have you seen from your players so far with it?
I've actually seen a lot of growth here in the last couple of months, man. Coming from 7-on-7 and getting into the preseason this year. But, I've seen a lot of kids just, hone into what we've been trying to teach them, with a lot of mental effort. I talk about effort a lot, not just the physical aspect of it, but, trying to learn, what to do, trying to know what to do. If you can get a line and you know what to do every play, then, that is 75% of football right there. So, I think that I've seen a ton of growth, and the kids are buying in. I think coming in, having a defensive mindset behind, the ins and out of our operations daily, having that mindset first will help us sustain some hopefully some wins this year. So it's just been fun to coach these guys up. They're flying around, they're having fun, they're playing with a lot of confidence, like they said. Man, I think that they understand that, hey, this is my last ride. These guys, all of my seniors do. This is my last ride. We got to get it right. We gotta have make sure that we're communicating, doing things the right way, and it's just been fun.
Yeah, me and him, we played linebacker since freshman year, and last year we ran a 4-3 with a outside linebacker walk down and kind of out, so we were the only guys in the box. And so that's just kind of all we've known. We both have our guards to read. We both made plays, and I think me and him, two of the best linebackers in Southern Ohio in playing together. And so now with our 3-3, you bump him out. He's down on the D-line sometimes, and then I'm the only guy in the box. It's definitely a big change, but I think, with Coach Phillips and Coach Carper, they believe in it, and so then I think we're going to be successful because we believe in it.
Yeah, I just think believing in the vision. I think meeting Coach Phillips for the first time, I pretty much knew he was about business, just immediately. So knowing that how confident he is in his defense, I knew that we could all trust it, and we just had to get to work as soon as possible to get it really worked in and kind of just engraved in our minds.
All right, when you talk about just plays where you're the only linebacker in the box, being that middle linebacker, having to take responsibility for both A gaps and you got sometimes both B gaps. How hard is that as a middle linebacker, and how easier does your defensive line make it for you?
It's definitely not an easy job, especially this year. Coach Phillips says reading the triangle, so I'm reading both guards and the center, and obviously we'll game plan, and I'll know who to read for different teams, but it's definitely a challenging position, but I love it. I just remember my sophomore year, our defense coordinator at the time, Coach Adams, told me, he's like, you get to call the plays tonight because the senior linebacker was hurt, and there's something about it, just like calling the defensive plays and controlling the defense is definitely a great feeling for me. And then I think our D-line makes it so much easier. I mean, they're amazing. Nate Sism, Trace McAllister, and then we have a young guy, Aiden Scales, stepping in there to replace Anthony Smith. And I think, Nate he just eats double teams for every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That dude just, he's a boulder. And then Trace is quick. And so, I give a lot of credit to our D-line for the plays that I make. And I think, they're going to have a great year. And I think we're going to have a great year as a defense.
And then, kind of a broader look at things, all three of you could answer this one. Since the FAC became a thing in 2017, Jackson had at least a share of it. So they've been at the top for a while. Miami Trace is up there. Obviously, you guys knocked them off last year, but Miami Trace is definitely a step ahead of what they were last year. You guys are also a step ahead of what you were last year for what it looks like. So, what are you guys doing to try to dethrone Jackson, to try to take the crown entirely and have the first outright championship at Chillicothe?
I'll tell you the number one thing. We're just taking care of ourselves, man. We're going to take it one step at a time. And our goal is to be, competitive in the league and to be in that top two at the end of the year at week 10, rolling up to Alumni Stadium. But, I'm not saying this to brag, but I've never lost in Jackson. But in Andy, I tell Coach Hall that all the time too. But I've never lost to him, and I don't plan on losing to him. But I just want it to be a competitive game. I want it to be a good game. I want it to be great. And we're going to do everything that we can to do those things. But like I said, we're just going to take it 1 week at a time, focus on getting better. And if like on our lunch pail, we have win. So what that means is what's important now, and Jackson ain't important right now. Bloom Carroll's what's important right now. Week 1, then we'll go to week 2, and if we can continue to focus on the things that make us Chili, then I think that you'll see the growth. I think you'll see us close that gap, between Jackson and the rest of the league, between Miami Trace and the rest of the league, So just focusing on us and getting better in the moment. But yeah, I don't plan on losing anybody right now. So we're gonna try to, work as hard as we can, do the right things on and off the field, and grind.
All right. What was my question? That was good. That's a good question. Let's get something positive from scrimmages. Something you still feel like you need to work on. I heard you guys play Cold Grove. Add another one in there. What are some takeaways right now?
Right now we're really trying to get our depth. We're trying to gain some depth in some of the younger kids, and we're pretty solid. I think our first 22 kids that we have, 23 kids that we have, are a really solid group. But we're just trying to work on some depth and get some of these younger guys to step up and to be guys that we can trust, that we can count on, and that we're going to have to rely on throughout the full season. It's 10 weeks, and 10 weeks may not seem long to just a normal person, but it's a long season, and anything can happen in that season, and the next person's got to be ready, So I love competing, and I want these kids to learn how to compete and love to compete. And all because, each week is an evaluative period for that depth chart. And I want guys to know that this just isn't yours. You may have earned it this week, but next week, hey, man, you better continue to work because there's another kid, there's a younger kid that's pushing to be that guy. So, just trying to get those guys up and running and develop. So that's the number one thing for me. Just looking back at the preseason right now with our scrimmages that we've had, is I like to see a lot of our younger guys, some of those sophomores, some of the juniors step up and be guys that we can trust. What do you guys think?
Positive. Well, I think on the positive side with the scrimmages, we have proved to ourselves that we can score. I think that we can score and make plays on the offensive side of the ball. I think for the past few years, or the past year at least, like last year, I think our defense was solid. I think we had a really solid defense. But when it comes to offense side of the ball, we'd go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. I mean, and our defense would be on the field probably 75% of the game, at least what it felt like. So with these scrimmages, we've proved to ourselves and everybody watching that we can score when needed. We can score whenever we want. I mean, we can score. We can just score like finally with this offense, and I think it's extremely positive for us on the confidence side of the football.
And I was unable to play in the scrimmages due to injury, so I think, having that fire of not quite being on the field yet in my first actual in-game competition is going against Bloom Carroll. I think there's nothing more exciting right now. Like, that's all I'm looking forward to is this Friday night. And so I think, being able to coach up the younger guys and be around the team and getting them excited. But I'm so excited to get back on the field this Friday.